I'm going to guide us through meditation practice. And I just want to say I'm really happy each of you are here. The word mindfulness comes from the Pali, P-A-L-I, the language that the Buddha's teachings, one of the languages that were transcribed in, and Sati, S-A-T-I, means mindfulness, and mindfulness, another translation is remembering. And so remembering our dignity and how beautiful we are and our right to be fully human in our dignity. I know that being here with each other is an essential way of doing that, at least for me. And I think for many of you, I think that's why you're here, to be reminded of that, of our worthiness to be alive. So meditation is a remembering of our aliveness. And I want to invite you for this next half hour to come back again and again to the aliveness that's present in your body, and for moments tapping into the aliveness of each of us here in this weird thing called Zoom. Yeah. So So finding a posture that represents your dignity. People are trying to take that away from us all the time, but it's a forgetting, and no one can really. And yet we have to claim it for ourselves, and whatever posture you decide to be in, have it be one of dignity. So whether sitting or lying down, moving or standing, find a posture that feels righteous, that feels like that you have a right to be in your body just as it is. The pains and discomforts, the joys, the sorrows. That's what the practice is about, is being with all the things. Being with all the things with the intention, the practice towards reducing suffering. So this is a practice, as I understand it, of harm's reduction, of reducing the harm that we've internalized, the messages about being perfect and even meditating the right way. And to be clear, there isn't a right way. The only wrong way is to create more harm, to judge ourselves for judging ourselves, for judging ourselves. We hold a lot of judgment in the shoulders. I'm going to invite you, if you want, to gently roll them out and do whatever other movement you'd like. Maybe you want to roll out your wrists gently, the shoulders. Maybe you start to find a fuller breath. If you want to roll out your jaw, and if you want to feel the your dignity. You use your hands and you might feel the firmness of your body, the aliveness. You might go to a part of the body that feels tense and try not to judge that. I'll invite a move for those of you who know yoga to do a cat stretch, just to open up your chest, lift your head, and then tuck your chin down and have your back like a cat with its hair going back. And just to do that a couple times to create some movement in your spine. And then if you want, roll out your shoulders again and your wrists, and maybe a gentle movement of the neck. Maybe side to side first, and then horizontally left to right. And find a couple deeper breaths. You're on mute. If you want to do a relaxing sigh, do that. And on your in-breath, you're breathing in this brand new moment. And on the out-breath, you're letting go and letting be, letting yourself be here just as you are. So maybe you circle your feet and your ankles, and if you're not already there, you'll start to make your way to a more still posture. But if movement wants to arise, if sound wants to come from your body, do that. Really, the intention is to touch into your wholeness, the fullness of this moment, of all the things inside your body, going on outside of your body. The miracle that we touch into via this practice is that we can find relative stillness in the middle of all the things that are happening inside of our body and outside. The sounds, our own thoughts, sensations in our body. They're all a part of this moment. They're all a part of the practice of remembering, of coming back again and again to this moment just as it is. Coming back again and again to this moment just as it is. Sensing the aliveness in your body. Sensing where there's comfort, where there's discomfort. Noting where there's tiredness, where there's extra energy. Where there's pushing away and anger. Or where there are circling thoughts of doubt. Am I doing this right? I don't want to feel this, or this feels great. Just noticing those sensations, thoughts, feelings, physical. They're just a part of this moment, this experience. They're all part of the aliveness of this moment. So gently noticing what's happening right now. Just gently, not over-analyzing, feeling where you're feeling comfort, discomfort, anger, aversion, tiredness, anxiety, doubt. And try to breathe it in and breathe it out. And you make a mental note, oh, a lot of energy, anxiety, or angry, pissed off, tired, cranky. This practice gives us a capacity to see things clearly, see all the things are happening all the time. Some things just grab our attention, and we're training the mind and body to come back and hold space for whatever is arising. Holding space as a reminder of our aliveness. In these last minutes of our practice, I want to offer some phrases called the divine abodes, phrases that might help us reside in abodes of our dignity, of our divinity, our divinity, our dignity. And may I be safe and protected, free from inner and outer harm. May I be safe and protected, free from inner and outer harm. May I be happy and free from suffering. May I be happy and free from suffering. May I find joy and peace in an uncertain world. May I find peace, joy in an uncertain world. May I ride the waves of uncertainty with faith, grace, and loving action. May I ride the waves of uncertainty with faith, grace, and loving action. So allow those phrases, a word or a few words to cycle through your system, or stay with whatever you're practicing with for these last couple of minutes. So I'm going to invite the singing bowl 3 times. Just for these last couple of moments, see where you can soften in your body and see if a word or a phrase comes up that you want to take with you through the rest of this evening. And I'll invite the bell of mindfulness. May it be so. Thank you for your practice. Yeah, so I'm going to offer a talk that I prepared just for us for tonight about, well, the title is Obstacle as Path, Finding Peace in the Both and. And the term obstacle comes from one of the foundational teachings in Buddhism about the 5 obstacles, sometimes called the 5 hindrances to mindfulness meditation. And it could sound like they're problems, but they're actually part of the path of liberation and freedom. And we get caught up in notions perpetuated by definition via systems of oppression. So like notions of perfectionism or internalized victimization or playing out the perpetration that's been inflicted on us. And many of you know that the first ennobling truth, when the Buddha was said to have become enlightened, that was the first teaching the Buddha gave, was about the 4 noble truths, and basically that there's suffering and that we create more of it, and there's a way out, and the way out is through harms reduction and via ethical living. And the Buddha also gave this teaching on these 5 obstacles. And I've prepared a few slides for visual representation. And yeah, so the 5 are, so I'm going to start with doubt, and that's usually the last one on the list, but I'm starting with that one because that one can really fuck our shirt up. Like, doubt can stop you from practicing, and we're always practicing something. So I don't want anyone to think it's like something separate from our lives, meditation. We're already doing too much, right? And it's about being, actually, not so much doing. And so doubt gets us to feel like we're not doing it right. So ill will is the second one. Listlessness, or sort of like a depression, is the third. Fourth is anxiety, restlessness, worry. And then the 5th one is sense desire. So I'll show us these metaphors for these hindrances, these obstacles. So doubt is this one here. And it said that in the original scriptures that of the Buddha's teachings was doubt, vishishika, is the mind being clouded and muddy, like that you can't see to the bottom. And I picked this picture because there's beauty in the background there, but that we're so muddy, like we're trying to look to the bottom of what is otherwise a clear mind. So again, this meditation practice is reminding us that clarity, freedom, and liberation are all synonymous terms, are always available at every moment. And that we experience doubt because we are looking through the mud and can't see the truth. And the way doubt shows up, and that's why I brought it up in our meditation, it's usually like, I'm not doing this right, or why is this happening? Or I shouldn't be feeling pain. I shouldn't be having all these thoughts all the time. And then where it really messes us up is like, what's the point of even being in the moment? And because, it's not pleasant, and so those are the main ways doubt shows up in our kind of individual practice. And we also have doubts about our dignity and worth. Or I'll just speak for myself. Let me just speak for myself. Although this term imposter syndrome has been more popular, so I know I'm not alone in that sense of who I am is not enough. It's not good enough. So that doubt in myself and my capacity to be alive and to be who I am in a humble way, right? Because when we're feeling doubtful of ourselves, we go into that opposite, that hubris, and that feeling, that narcissism feeling, and we get caught up in that overcompensating. What's giving me, so the opposite of doubt is like faith. And when I started teaching meditation about a dozen years ago, I was working at an elementary school and very low resourced school, like most public schools nowadays. And I went in, it was a group of parents, and mainly Latino parents. And I went in and feeling doubtful. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I think that the parents picked up on that. But I also knew that it was really helping me deal with self-doubt that I was covering up with mainly unwholesome behaviors. And I'll go in, they connect to the next hindrances. And then at the end, they were like, "Y este pelón," and they said in Spanish, this mom said, I didn't, this balding dude just came in here like trying to, like, picking up on my doubt, like not knowing. I haven't told this story, so I'm just remembering it from, and the mom saying that I didn't believe you, but once you led us through the yoga and meditation, that I realized that there was a capacity to be with the stress that I'm dealing with. And so that's the main antidote to this doubt, is to see for yourself. That's from what I understand the Buddha taught, was see what works for you, because you can be told all these things and you won't understand it on a really deep level unless you experience it yourself. And it's not about experiencing calm and feeling good and all these sort of things. I mean, that's definitely part of the whole deal. But see for yourself what is true, what cultivates more aliveness in your being. And the traditional scriptures say that going to visiting elders is another way to dispel doubt, and how nowadays it's really challenging to find that humility to go to our elders and so to talk to other experienced people, so teachers. And a third thing is to have good friends, and suitable conversation is one of the translations, and a strong commitment to your practice. Again, because we're always practicing something, and to have a strong commitment to seeing clearly, to sobriety, I see as the same as seeing clearly, being soberly with things as they are. And this shit's hard, you know. The second one around ill will is that energy of rage or anger, or aversion is another word. And it's hard when we have so much reason to be angry, and that it can seem like we are being gaslit all the time. Because in this pandemic, at least for me, the sense of wanting things to, quote, go back to normal, and feeling the anger at, like, wanting to blame something or somebody for not having for having discomfort, for not having the delusion that there is somewhere else out there that doesn't have suffering, or doesn't have the power to make me forget about my own worth and dignity. And so I want to be clear about anger being an energy that can help us stick up for that right to claim our dignity, and to claim our humanness, our humanity. And in this hindrance, where we go wrong, and I'll show you the picture for it, it's boiling water. And where we go wrong with this is that we are scalding ourselves, right? We're burning ourselves, and they're like, oh shit. And then we burn someone else with it, right? And for most of us, for all of us, I can say it's well-worn grooves, right? From the traumas, the injustice that we witnessed as kids that we couldn't put words to, that our parents, in trying to protect us, were gaslighting us and saying, no, it's not, or just get over it. And then seeing the systems and the inequality and not having words for it and not having the mental capacity not to blame ourselves for the sadness, for the traumas of the world. And it's been my experience that we're reliving that pattern over and over again of blaming ourselves. And when that gets to be too much, we start to blame other people. And blame, in where it becomes unskillful, it's when it's rageful, boiling, scalding, burning ill will toward others and obviously ourselves, right? And we know, many of us, I believe, know what that ill will toward ourselves looks like. It comes in very subtle forms of judging, and then it manifests in other injurious, right, behaviors. Yet it's a part of the practice. Like, it isn't an opportunity to blame ourselves even more for having internalized, for wanting to not suffer. So the remedy for this is compassion, self-compassion, but that's not pretty, because compassion actually means you're suffering with, like, you're in the suffering. And we need wisdom to see how, if we're stuck in that suffering and are blaming ourselves for it, that there's consequences, that's going to continue until there is a cooling of that water. And compassion and the phrases I offered during the meditation are potentially cooling of those rageful flames. And so the both and of these things. So I didn't mention the both and of doubt is that we need a little bit of doubt to practice. Because again, prove it to me kind of thing, but prove it to yourself. And so with the anger and the ill will, the both and is that we need anger to protect ourselves from the violence coming at us. Right? And then we can see how we hold on to resentments. The Buddha had a story about hot coals, that were holding the hot coals of anger, of rage, and who the hell is getting burned, right? And I'm thinking of John Lewis about good trouble. So using anger to trouble our usual ways of being and trouble the kind of negative peace that comes a lot. Some of you know of Kazu Haga, Kazu Haga, Haga. He wrote a book called Healing Resistance. And he says, negative peace is the absence of open tension at the expense of real peace and harmony. So how can we trouble our ways of holding on to rage as a misguided protector. This sense of like, if I beat myself up, no one's gonna beat me up. Or if I just talk hella shit about the quote on the other side, that rage will get them to change, right? And that they ain't doing the same fucking thing that we're doing, right? And so how do we trouble the narratives of the delusion of another, right? So I don't really have an answer for that. The answer is going to keep on coming back to being with things as they are and, practicing. There's a beautiful quote from a monk named Ajahn Chah, Ajahn, Chah, Chah. And he writes, if there's a flood, don't let it flood your mind. And if there's a fire, don't let it burn your heart. And there's aversion is another word for ill will. And there's little moments throughout the day that we're just like pushing away the unpleasant. And I feel like that's a way that rage happens. It's because anger is an indication that there's an injustice. And if we keep on pushing the little things away, it builds up to a fire that ends up burning yourself and everyone around you. And the way it burns us inside, I feel, is this third hindrance, obstacle of listlessness, of depression, sometimes called sloth and torpor. Because anger turned inward turns into depression. Because we're pushing down that energy that's trying to keep us safe. And I want to come back to that phrase I offered at the end of the meditation of, may I be safe and protected, free from inner and outer harm. So a couple things. It's not freedom of harm, but freedom from. Right? So freedom from inner and outer harm. So the inner harm that we've internalized, and the outer harm of the uncertain world that we live in. I mean, it's certain that we're going to experience suffering, illness, and death. Right? But wishing for safety is a way that I have literally thousands of times said to myself so that I can get energy that otherwise would be turned into listlessness, this third hindrance. Because one way listlessness or tiredness works is that we start to get tired of being with ourselves, and that we want to feel good all the time. And then we've been sold that, once I get there, then I'll be happy. And not acknowledging the true causes of happiness. So the happiness that's actually only found in the here and the now is really exhausting, because we're going to the fantasies, the destination addiction. Once I get there, then I'll be happy. Once I look like this, lose this, or gain this, then I'll never suffer again. And that shit's hella exhausting. If you've had the privilege of going on longer retreats, you start to see how this tiredness, this listlessness shows up as a way to avoid feeling the unpleasant. Yeah. And I want to be clear, though, the both and here is that we have good reason to be tired and exhausted and depressed. And that when people aren't anxious and depressed, that's when I start to worry about folks. Especially right now we're going through a historical trauma, right? A collective trauma. And the traumas that everyone goes through, but especially us BIPOC folks, those traumas of the injustice of oppression create these pits in our psyches, in our minds of depression that we can fall into. I sometimes think of them as trapdoors that we're falling into. And those are natural responses to the injustice, the violence that's been perpetrated on us. And it relates to anxiety, this fourth one. I sometimes think of it as we're driving, the depression is like pushing the brakes and anxiety is like pushing the gas pedal. And so this fourth one, restlessness and worry, like having too much energy to be able to collect our attention, is another hindrance, another obstacle to being in the moment as it is. But the both and is that we need energy to pay attention, right? And again, a normal, natural response to uncertainty, to the hella stress, the economic uncertainty, the health of our physical bodies because of this virus uncertainty. And it's a normal response to that. And you can see how if we have too much energy, it's another form of fire. And how do you throw fuel on those flames? Right? Most of us, it's because in meditation, we call it planning mind. And so it's all future tripping, futurizing, disaster fantasies. These are my favorite terms for this, where we're trying to predict the future, and that we expend so much energy on trying to figure things out when the reality is that things are really complex, and that it's a form of being full of yourself, the opposite of humility, when you think that you can figure it all out on your own. And then another form of individualism, right, which is easily one of the main reasons we have so much suffering in the world. The delusion of separation, right, from other humans and the more than human, right, the cockroach, the ant, the rock, the dirt. So I didn't show us these pictures. The fifth one is sense desire. So the muddy water, the boiling water. Listlessness is stale, stagnant water. So this is the sloth and torpor, depression. And restlessness, wind blowing on the water. And the fifth one, sense desire. And just to end with some laughter, hopefully. Senses. In Buddhism, 6 senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch, and the mind. And so I love this picture. It's hilarious. It has all the things, computer, Cheetos. And so that we create a lot of suffering because we want to feel good all the time. And we take refuge in things that are conditioned. So what I say about sense desire is that if you're going to have it, enjoy it, but be wise and know that it's not going to last forever. And then be curious about that and then play it through in your mind and then see if it's creating more lasting joy or creating what Buddhists call the hungry ghost of never being satiated by placating by momentary pleasures through our senses. And yet the both and here is that we need joy and we need to feel good. We need to take pleasure in this one precious life. And that's essential for meditation. And Adrienne Marie Brown says, I touch my own skin and it tells me that before there was any harm, there was a miracle. So that's how, a couple more points how I'll end. The miracle, the etymology of that is object of wonder. So, and if you're wondering what like the secret to meditation practice is, I'll give you the big secret, is that the obstacle is part of the path. That's the big secret. We're taught a bunch of lies about don't be the way you are and you're not good enough. You're not okay as you are. And that's the secret to the practice, is that you are okay. You are beautiful. You are dignified. Your divinity. So that's all in. Thank you for your attention and for your practice.